There you have it. Samuel Njoroge, karibu sana to the program. This is Good Morning Kenya, the only way to kickstart your morning. Conversations about the youth in Kenya. This is something I told you we'll be highlighting this morning when we were opening the show at 6 a.m. The writer is with us in studio. His name is Raphael Obonyo, and I'll take it as the book says. Usiseme nilipaka mafuta. Now, Raphael Obonyo is an influential voice of African youth to policymakers as the continent's representative to the World Bank's Global Coordination Board of the Global Youth Anti-Corruption Network and a member of the UN Habitat's Youth Advisory Board. He remains audible in critical circles of influence. Wacha tu niachie hapo. And Raphael, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And joining Raphael also is Alphas Ruto, who is what I may call a practical youth. You know, he's been through the system. He's still in the system. But what he's done is that he's taken up whatever situations are around him, not allowing them to limit him, but basically taking the opportunities, capitalizing on that, and making sure that he's able to make a difference, not only to his life, but to the lives of others. Alphas Ruto, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I'll start over with you, Raphael. Conversations about the youth in Kenya. What is this all about?
I think...
in brief.
Oh, in brief is that this basically is a reflection of youth situation in Kenya, youth conditions and youth positions in Kenya. If we look at places and spaces where youth are found, what is the situation like for young people? What is it to be a young person in Kenya? And I'm looking at the history, you know, post-independent Kenya. I'm looking at the history, how have young people been treated since we got independence. I'm looking at present in terms of where are we in terms of young people or with young people. And also I'm imagining the future. What is it that we can achieve by including and involving young people? So conversations about youth in Kenya is about the past, the present, and the future of youth in Kenya. Yeah.
And before we even get now to more detail on the book, let's get to understand who you two gentlemen are. Who is Raphael Obonyo? How did you grow up?
I was born and bred in Korogosho, which is actually one of the non-formal settlements in Kenya. And like many other non-formal settlements, or what we call the slums and the ghettos, realities are quite harsh. It's a very unforgiving environment. You mess up a bit and you're done. And we saw young people engage in crime, you know, young people engage in drug abuse and other very precarious and dangerous activities. Also as a result of the situation they gave up in life, because poverty does two things. I've always said it can make you helpless and hopeless, and many people who are growing up in poverty or poverty-related situations find themselves in a situation where they get hopeless and helpless. But poverty can do a second thing. It can give you some level of determination to say, look, I don't want to be in this situation, and to keep striving to get out of it and to do better, to do good, and to do better. So there are a few of these, I mean, maybe not a few, but there are a number of these kind of positive stories of people who are saying, look, we have to conquer poverty. Poverty cannot conquer us. And so I found myself on that side of the divide saying, look, I have to fight poverty. I have to get out of these situations. I can't allow my generations and future generations to inherit these kind of situations. And so that's Raphael. And over the years, I've found myself in different spaces, working with young people, for young people, and amongst young people. And now I'm youth representative to the UN Youth Advisory Board and also to the World Bank. Yeah.
Two things about your story, Raphael. You've mentioned situations. You've also mentioned you were able to get out of those situations. So the bigger question is, how are you able to do that? But before you respond to that, let me cross over to Alphas, and probably Alphas, to you, just start by telling us who exactly are you, how were you born? Not how were you born, sorry, but where were you born and how was your upbringing?
Thanks, Samuel. I was born in Eldoret town, in a small village called Chepkitin. I went through the normal process of the system 844 system. I joined university, did BSc Actuarial Science. Then before then, I did my master's in finance. As a youth, I've been through the formal sector of employment. I've been employed twice. I worked for Barclays Bank before, then joined Real People Microfinance before quitting the job and said, let me do what I can do and what I'm passionate about as a youth, and making difference in the society, impacting lives, creating employment. And I had specialty in credit and providing financial services. So in that essence, we model a product targeting the bottom of the pyramid clients. So currently I run a microfinance called Sun Group Micro Africa. We've been in operation for the last 1.5 years. So we're getting into our second year. The growth has been enormous. We've designed a product that targets the bottom of the pyramid clientele, the SME segment, the entrepreneurs, the small entrepreneurs, the upcoming entrepreneurs. We do what we call financial inclusion. So it's been a good journey. I got the experience in terms of dealing with people, offering financial services, credit analytics, and all that kind of stuff. So that is Alpha's route.
Interesting and good. 1.5 years, and it has been a good year.
Yeah.
You know, most startups say, aye, this is not working.
Yeah.
But 1.5 years and yours is working. But let's tie in a broad conversation about the youth. And Raphael, I'll come to you in terms of, you mentioned situations that you went through and you were able to overcome them. Tell us what situations you went through while growing up, as well as how you were able to overcome that.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, growing up in any slum or in any situation of poverty, you find yourself in a very unforgiving environment. You trip a bit and you're done. I didn't, for example, I stayed out of school for some time because of issues of school fees. And just today I saw in the papers they're talking about issues of bursaries and all that. Many people, many young people growing up in places like the non-formal settlements cannot afford education, cannot access, cannot afford, and education is not available for them. So I found myself in that kind of situation. And then if you look at the surrounding there, for example, I grew up in, we didn't have a single library in Korogosho that time. So I had to walk from Korogosho to town, Macmillan. And by the time you get to Macmillan, actually in the morning, the library is already full. So you have to walk again to Kenya National. By the time you get to Kenya National, it's full. So you'll be studying outside there. So you lack some of these basic facilities, basic services, and life becomes quite, and life is also quite brutal in the ghetto. And what I saw is many young people who'd given up engaging in crime, drug abuse, as a way of running away from the reality. But I think everyone is a captain of their ship.
Yeah.
I think you need to find it within you and make a decision on how you want to shape your destiny. And so I found it within me to say, look, I can overcome this kind of situation. So that's one. But I must also not just attribute sort of the little achievements that I've made to myself. I think I've had quite a bit of support from different people, you know, networking, connecting with different people. Because that is how I was able, for example, to mobilize resources to accomplish, or rather to complete my education. Support from, you know, bursaries and well-wishers and such other people. Yeah. So I would also say that what gave me a ladder to be where I am is education.
Is education.
Education.
And of course, you're a modest man, calling all these achievements little.
Yeah.
Raphael, let me tell you, Alphas,
Yeah.
when you look at the young population in Kenya, what is the problem? Why aren't we breaking it huge when it comes to making it in life?
Samuel, you know, as youth in Kenya, we form the highest percentage of the population in Kenya. Mr. Obonya said that. We are more than 50% in terms of numbers. You know, when we were growing up, you know, you used to be asked, who do you want to be, Samuel? You say, I want to be a doctor. You want to be a teacher. You want to be a policeman.
Yeah.
But you see, over time, in the years back 20s, late 20s, you could get institutions and parastatals looking for people in the villages for employment. But now it's the other way around. We've grown in numbers. We have outgrown the institutions. The unemployment rate now is over 40% in Kenya currently. Of that percentage, 70% is youth. It's a matter of where do we want to fit in the society? Yeah. What do we want to do actually aside of the employment? Because employment is a scarce resource now. So we need to go out as youth there, be very innovative, look for products, look for creative businesses that you can run to be able to sustain ourselves. In terms of the challenges facing youth, number one is the financial inclusion. We have bright ideas out there. We have youth who've done their degrees, who've done their masters, and they have very great ideas. But the channel to that ideas all depends on funding. So funding is a challenge. When you go to the banks, you must be banking with them for the last 1 year. You must have been having a successful business rolling on. But most of the youths have ideas, startups, but they stall there because of the financial inclusion in it.
And just to interject and bring in Raphael, I'll take you up with what you've written in chapter 1. Let's get to
It's called cross-examination.
Cross-examination, real time. And this is what you say, that many have called it a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode in the country. Like previous governments, the Jubilee government that came into power in 2013 tried to put in place measures to tackle the problem of youth unemployment. But this is the catch. However, the government's strategies do not match the gravity of the problem. Raphael, what is the gravity of the problem?
I think youth unemployment is the single most serious challenge in Kenya today. Our unemployment rate, and I was just telling Alphas, is about 40%, and it's been like that for some time.
Yeah.
But that is not the problem. The major problem is that 7 out of every 10 jobless people in Kenya are actually young people who are bubbling with ideas, young people, some who have acquired some level of education, creative, talented, young people who have energy and they want to really get into the labor market. But there's no one who's giving them that opportunity. And like Alphas did say, there are limited number of gainful opportunities for these young people. And so what do? They end up in crime. They're the ones who are posing the threat in terms of insecurity and all that. So it's a serious problem. And the problem is the kind of solutions or initiatives that we are coming up with are just a drop in the ocean. You come up with an initiative today, it provides jobs maybe for 10,000 young people. But look, every year, from colleges and universities, we are churning out 500,000 to 800,000 young people who are going to the job market. Do you know how many get jobs? About 20,000 of them. Where do all these other people go to? So the initiatives that we are coming up with do not match the kind of problem that we have, and perhaps they are not the correct interventions and do not address the problem.
Lack of correct interventions and coming up with solutions that do not, match up with the gravity of the problem. Where is the disconnect, Alphas?
Let me echo what Obonya said, is that we're faced with serious challenges. These challenges are crime, fraud in the society, terrorism, and this all is caused by the youth population. The government has come up with solutions. Try to come up with solutions. I can't say that. You can bear me witness. Ways of fund came in, but it's not eating the country well. This thing has to be channeled through the county levels, to the sub-county levels, to the villages, that Ways of Fund can be able to fund youth. But it's silent a bit. So the government must come up with very initiative ways of supporting youth at the lower segment of the population. Youth are struggling. They want to be employed by the military. They want to be employed as teachers. They want to be employed but there is the other aspect of capacity building to the youth. Yeah. We just need to capacity build the youth and tell the youth that you can be able to do your own things. You can be innovative. You can be able to establish a car wash somewhere. You can be able to identify a solution in the society and provide that and earn an income. So the major role that, as Obonya wrote there, is what the strategies for the government doesn't match what the youth needs. So we need capacity building. Tell the youth this is what you want to do. A youth in Eldoret is not the same as a youth in Kirinyaga. So they come from a different perspective of life. And there's a number of factors that these youth needs to be involved in and to be trained on.
Do we have an issue with attitude, Raphael? Because I've had this conversation in so many forums. I know you dream big, you don't want to start small. Do we have a problem there?
Certainly, if we are to address unemployment in this country, the first thing that we must change is our attitude, especially as young people. Time has changed where you went to school, came out, and applied for a job. And Alphas is a good example here of someone who is saying, look, I came out, and this is now what I'm doing. I've started my own business, and one and a half years later, things are promising. He didn't go sending out his CV like we are doing, because there's lots of frustration. Just like I told you, out of 500,000, there are only 20,000 jobs perhaps available. So we need to move from being job seekers to job creators. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
And two, we also should start seeing things like informal sector and things like entrepreneurship as jobs, you know, so that someone who is running a grocery, or someone who is running an M-Pesa shop, or someone who is running a car wash is also employed. Not just someone sitting in office. In fact, people who are earning more today are not necessarily people who are working in offices. And so as young people, we need to move away from the old ideas of, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a lawyer, and those other kind of professions, and start seeing ourselves as job creators and inventors of new opportunities.
I want to be my own person.
Oh, yeah.
Alphas, you're an example. You started off with your new company. How did you do it?
Before you go there, Samuel, let me just touch on the bit of attitude as when you touched it. And to the youth, attitude plays a very important role on who you will be tomorrow and your success in future. For you to be very successful and for you to get to successful bit, you must be very disciplined. Yeah, you must balance your attitude. Yeah, you must be people friendly for you to fit in the society very well. Coming into my business, I started my business very small. I started by paying rent. I identified my niche market and said there's a gap between the microfinances, the large microfinances, and the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So what I focused in is I used to be dreaming of running my own business and being my own boss in future. So I model a product over time that could suit that person at the grassroots level, someone running a kiosk, a mama mboga, who's not been able to be targeted by the bank because of the low turnovers, probably can't bank with the bank, and having identified that niche market. So it was a practical bit of going to implement it and go for it. So I designed that product. I started first by identifying the premise, which was a very strategic place for business people. I paid it for 2 months without anything. So I had my first employee, I paid that for first month. And then she was asking me, kindly, are we going to make it? So over the second month, we now rolled in the system. So I borrowed in I was lucky because I was employed. So I borrowed in some little money from the banks. So I started up, I remember I started up with 5 clients, and these were purely women. So we targeted Mama Mboga pale, someone was running a boutique, and then we told them, we can be able to give you some small money. It's a revolving facility, a credit limit facility that it can be able to boost your business. So we were doing what you call a working capital or for business expansion. So we did that. We gave 5 of them, and you can remember the 5 referred their friends and their business partners. And within a very short time, we were having customers flocking to the premise. And by then, you remember, we didn't have money, I didn't have money. And so we employed a tactful way of doing things. We could take their contacts, tell them, oh, okay, fine, we will get back to you soon. But on the back end, you know, you're working to get financials and finances. And that is a key challenge to what I said earlier, is access to funding, by the youth. So I engaged a few friends and people who had the same idea, and we injected some few money. So I remember the next lot of it was 150,000. So that was probably to 15 to 10 clients, because we used to give an average ticket size of 10,000. And these are purely unsecured loans, and they're affordable, because we want to make an impact to someone who's running a small business. So by then it grew that small, so we could take contacts, we could call the first guys who came in, oh, sorry, we've now implemented this, you can come for this solution, and we monitor. So we piloted it for 3 months first, and the rest is a story.
The rest is a story. So what I get from you is that there was a lot of patience. You did a market study. You had to identify what it is that you wanted to ride on, which calls for preparation. Raphael, coming to you, because I've also dealt with the youth kidogo, not as extensive probably as you have, but are people actually prepared to become youth in Kenya? Are people prepared for that stage in their lives? Or if they wake up and they're celebrating a birthday and oops, I'm in this bracket?
I don't think people are prepared to be youth. Most of the time, people are shocked to find themselves in that kind of situation. That now I'm a youth. I need to take care of myself. I need to start looking for a job. I need to to start paying bills and all that. So people are not prepared, and I can blame youth themselves, but we can also blame the society in the way we are organized. If you look at the older generation, I think they were more prepared. I mean, there were certain processes that people had to go through, so that by the time now you get to the stage where you're now called a youth, I mean, a lot has been prepared. But this day and era, you don't find a lot of that. We find ourselves in shock that now we are youth.
We're youth.
Yeah. So that's a big challenge.
The mentorship is this small. The role modeling is almost not there.
Yeah. There's nothing. I mean, and both at the family level, but also at different levels of the society. There's nothing. And that's why in this book I'm talking about conversation, that we need to engage with young people. We need to talk with them. We need to have a discussion about what is it that young people need? What is it? What does it mean to be a youth? That is not there. Parents no longer sit with their kids to discuss things that matter. I mean, and that's a big challenge.
That's a big challenge, absolutely. Alphas, were you ever mentored?
I can say recently, yes, but initially it was very
You were mentored after you
yes, after getting into business. Initially, I couldn't even find where to get mentored to. And that is a very serious challenge, as Obonyo said. Mentorship is very key to young people. Just being told where do you want to be, who do you want to be, and is it possible? Is it a reality? Is it something that you can realize? Or you just daydreaming and all those things? And that is how it is. Young people need to be mentored, needs what you call capacity building. And I like what Obonyo is doing right now, because he's coming up with his books and trying to get solutions. Tell the government this is what the youth needs. He's done a survey of the youth, identified the key problems, and he's put that in the book. So, and I can bear that witness that we need mentorship. We need people to get close to us. We need even the private sector. We need the government to come in. We need the non-governmental organizations to come into the youth and support the youth, end to end. A few people like us will take the zeal and go home, and try to penetrate the market.
The market. Yeah. Speaking of the youth, I feel we need to define this age bracket that we're talking about. And Raphael, in your book, you've quoted the Institute of Economic Affairs, which terms the age bracket to be between 15 to 34 years. But you look at it a bit differently. Let's share your approach towards the definition of who youth are.
For me, I argue that, because different institutions, countries and contexts define youth differently. If you look at Institute of Economic Affairs define youth as people between age 15 and 34. The Kenyan Constitution will define youth as people between age 18 and 34. The African Union will define youth the same way. United Nations will define youth as people between age 15 and 24. And I'm arguing youth is not just about numbers. It's not just about a particular age bracket. It's also about that moment. It's not just a moment of transition, because what you gain in youth, and like Alpha said, if you're not mentored while you're a youth, you'll just be staggering, grappling in darkness. So unless we start looking at youth not as leaders of tomorrow, but as leaders of tomorrow that starts today, we must start not just look at youth as the future. We must also look at them as the future that has to be prepared today. So while I'm arguing, yes, we can talk about age brackets. That's okay in different contexts, that we should not box ourselves in that kind of situation. We should look at what is it that we're providing for these young people now, so that when we get to that tomorrow, there'll be the kind of people that we aspire for, or rather we desire in our society.
Where did that phrase actually come from? Leaders of tomorrow.
I mean, no, I think it's a way of saying, look, be in the waiting room, wait for your turn. It's a way of delaying your. It's a delaying tactic.
Killing potential.
Exactly.
Not looking at the future.
Exactly.
How dare you? But then again, Alphas, as you made a transition through life, starting, because when you're looking at 15 years, you're in high school. Pretty much, right? Then you made a transition into university and now into the job market, and then figuring out this is not working for me, let me get to the next level. What variables played in shaping Alpha as the person throughout this journey?
Samuel, the very good thing that you must have as a person, as an entrepreneur, is passion. I had a passion to bring impact or to impact the society. And as someone said, you can't do business if you can't impact a life positively. So over time, I had passion. I had the zeal. I remember when I was a very young boy, my mom used to send me to the shop when I was in class 3 or 5. When I was around 7, 8 years. I used to be a shopkeeper by then. So I remember, and I drew very many lessons from my mom because she quit her job at a very young age. I remember at mid-30s, she was a teacher. She quit the job and focused and said, hey, look, I used to ask her, why do you have to quit that job? So she used to tell me, look, there's so much that I can do. Yeah, there's so much that I can do, and let me take the risk. And she did that. She went into business. She used to boutique business. She went into farming, and she did very well. So I drew that motivation from her over time. So when I was growing up as well, I used to have that thing in mind that I'm very passionate about also doing myself and building a brand as Alpha's Ruto. So what plays, the key variables that comes in there is you must have passion. You must know what you want to do, Samuel. You just can't walk out of this studio today and say, I'm tired of this and I want to go and do the Matatu operations. No, you can't make it. That is not what you want to do. So you must identify, you must have passion, you must have discipline, yeah, in any field that you are. And you must be very consistent. You must be very consistent. And you said there's no definition of youth. And what I say is from the age of 20 to 29 to 30, that is the way you need to try things. Fail, come back, and there's no failure. Failure is a lesson to you, is a strength to you, is a strength to your success. So at the age of 30 to 40 years is now when you need to scale up for growth, yeah? And now you know where you want to focus and really be in. At the age of 40, you'll be looking at now mentorship and mentoring the other young people. At the age of 50, yeah, you're now looking and saying, I need to be stepping away and giving the youth the opportunity to work for years.
Away,
so bringing those attributes together is what drove me as Alpha's Ruto to be where I am today. It's consistency, discipline, passionate, and don't fear.
Don't fear.
Don't fear. Take risks, and when you take risks, and consult a lot. Relate with people who've made it in life. I've been able to relate with very successful people who've done it, and draw inspiration from those people who've done it. Like nothing is impossible. Try it, go for it, and you'll be successful.
Whether is it that hard? Because probably someone is watching. Is it that hard though?
I can say if you don't have passion to what you want to do, it can be very hard for you. And if you do because I've seen Obonyo writing a book, I also want to write a book. This will be very hard for me, you know. Go for what you can do, what you're passionate about, and dedicate yourself to that.
Yes.
Do not want to diversify. Do farming today. Tomorrow you don't want farming. You're selling tomatoes in the streets. Tomorrow you opened a boutique. Tomorrow you're opening another shop. So you must be very focused. You must be aligned to what you can do. Stick to one line. Be consistent. Otherwise, if you diversify from that, it can be very hard. It can be very challenging. And you can even more or less fail to get even mentors, because when you get a mentor, this is the person who mentors you in what you want to be. Yeah, mentors you 2 to 3 years to 5 years to come. So you must be focused on what you want to do.
Focus,
Yeah.
focus more is what we need to do. If you haven't been doing it,
Yeah.
I have, they have been. So join the bandwagon, will you? And so that the passion in you is able to grow into something bigger. Raphael, there's so much, when I was going through your book, you've referred to articles that you've written, especially in one of the local dailies, the Daily Nation.
Yeah.
And at one point, as I was going through, I wondered, okay, we can't all write.
Yeah.
How else can someone make a difference? How else can someone make sure that they're making society a better place, improving the quality of their lives?
I think, first of all, you need to identify what you're good at.
Yes.
And try to use whatever you have to make a difference. You see, most of us, many times, we wish for things that we don't have, and we want to wait to have those things that we're wishing for us to make a difference. It shouldn't be so. If you don't have the level of education that someone else has, perhaps what you have, the talent that you have, can help you to earn a living and also make a difference. So you need to make do with what you have. That for me is extremely important. Looking at myself, growing up in Korogosho, the government was absent most of the time, and politicians were actually guests. They would come during elections every 5 years, they disappear for 5 years, then they come next elections and all that. And engaging and interacting with them was extremely difficult, so we had to devise ways of engaging with them. And for me, while we had many other ways of trying to engage with them, one of the ways I thought I would engage with policymakers, politicians, service providers, and some of these leaders was through my writings, and that is how I was able to write. Not everyone can write also. There are things that other people can do that I can't do, but I thought this is a better way of engaging with them. And over years, I have seen it work. I've got feedback. We've seen a few things change, like I indicate in the book.
Yes.
And I think for me that is an effective way of doing it. But you got to do something. I like what Martin Luther King Jr. once said, that if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, make sure you're moving forward. Do something. Don't just sit there. Because many people complain about their situation. If you're born and brought up in situations of poverty, you think that's the end of it, and you get stuck there and you keep talking about, I'm poor and all that. No, do something. That half the story is that you're poor, but the other half of the story is that you did something to get over that.
Absolutely.
And so do something, make a difference with whatever that you have.
And we are deliberately avoiding government in this conversation because as the people who are asking me questions about government, we are avoiding that because government is a conversation we've had for a very long time, and nothing seems to be changing. So the solution only begins with you. Very quickly, Raphael, let's talk about Chapter 5, a digital government and a digital generation. Why Chapter 5, first of all?
Chapter 5 for me is a very interesting chapter that says time is changing. The way we've always operated is not the same way that we are now. Young people, we've become sort of an instant generation. We want things now. Our definition of success has changed. It's no longer about going to school and getting a PhD and all that. It's becoming someone like Alphonse,
yes,
who went to school, gained some level of education, but said, look, I want to be my own boss. That is success. In the older generation, you wouldn't say anything like that. You had to go through the entire education system and then become a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher.
Yes.
Our definition of success is changing, and that's why I'm saying we are a digital sort of generation. But it happens also coincidentally that we also have a digital government in place. And so what I'm arguing is that, look, a digital government and a digital generation should be able to understand each other, should be able to do sort of be in sync and have some synergy and do a lot more together. And in that chapter, I'm arguing that while we expect so much from the digital government, seems like the digital government still have the hangovers of an analog government. And so they need to come to be in tune with this digital generation, or else the digital generation is going to, take another route.
Absolutely, they will take another route. Alphas, I'm coming to you on the question of how do we bring youth on board?
It's a very tough question, Samuel. But we need to, let me recap what I said earlier. We need to form institutions, and we can bring in government, sensitize the youth, do what you call capacity building to the youth, involve the youth. Mentorship is very key to the youth. And we can even go back to high school and tell the students that you no longer need to be a teacher to be successful. You no longer need to be a policeman. You no longer need to be a doctor. You can be an entrepreneur. Yeah? Bring back the courses of entrepreneur to the lower level of high school. Yeah? Let these people know that they can make it on their own. They can be role models.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And by that doing, when someone is getting out of the university first year or second year looking for a job, they can do something else because they know they can make it other than that side of looking for a job. And Obonyo said, the times that we are in now is very different. It's aside of working to do looking for that employment and giving your CV. So we can bring in youth in terms of involving them, bringing them, doing mentorship programs, capacity building to the youth, and sensitizing the youth, in the society. So let's go to the grassroots levels, use the county governments as low as that, have programs at the county levels, and involve youth, take ideas for the youth, fund youth, do the what you call financial inclusion to the youth as well. Fund the very bright ideas at the lower level of the pyramid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At the lower level, make sure that conversation resonates even down there. And as Raphael earlier said, he quoted a quote by Martin Luther King: you must do something. If you can't walk,
If you can't
run,
fly,
walk.
run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving
Keep
forward.
moving. And we
Yeah.
dare add another from GMK this morning: if you can't crawl, roll. At least please clap or do something. If you're static, make sure that you're visible and you are doing something to improve your quality of life. It's not about the government, it's not about the rest, it starts with you. So thank you so much, Alphas Ruto. Raphael, where do I get this book?
Oh, this book is now at textbook centers. You can also find it at Bookstop at Yaya. You can also find it at Prestige Bookshop, just here in town at Mamangina. Yeah, and the idea, we are hoping that by the end of this month, it will be in all the bookstores and perhaps different institutions, including the Kenya National Library Services.
Uko Facebook, uko Twitter.
Niko Facebook, mimi Facebook jina ni ile Raphael Obonyo. I'm on Twitter as Raphael Obonyo. So let us continue the conversation.
And you're a nominee for the 2015 UN Nelson Mandela Award.
We have to keep doing these things, man.
Amen, amen. We praise. And a finalist for the Business Daily's top 40 under 40 men in Kenya.
Yeah, we keep trying. Yeah.
Good little achievements you've made, as you said. Thank you so much, Raphael Obonyo. It's always a pleasure. Alphas Ruto, wishing you gentlemen all the best in both your present and future endeavors. My name is Samuel Njoroge. Nimeona hiyo feedback imeingia about this being a perfect coalition. Ruto, Obonyo, and Njoroge. We'll see about that ticketing, but we take a short break. Do not go anywhere. This is the only way to kickstart your morning. Good morning, Kenya.